What's going on, everybody? George here, Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel on another Tuesday episode of Going Bracket Racing Live. How's everybody doing out there today? And definitely was a great weekend. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed a little bit of drag racing. I know the Gator Nationals probably didn't have much fun with all the alligators and the rain all over the place. Casey, what's going on, bro?
Not a whole lot, man. I couldn't believe it. I thought that was definitely a joke, but it sure looked like there was an alligator in one of those pictures that someone had sent in. I don't know, that could have been planted, but
Mm-mm.
down in there, that's where they're from. So maybe it was, but that's something you don't expect to see at a drag strip.
Well, I think it's real because I think Alex Laughlin came on Facebook. He had a little like motor control boat, and he drove it around in one of those puddles, and an alligator attacked it. So it was real. It was real to say the least.
Man,
So
that's
definitely
something
not
else
fake.
right there.
Right, right. That's
That's Go ahead.
a lot of rain going on, you know.
Yeah, man, and I don't know. I feel bad for SFG, man, because I feel like the rain had it working against them for Bradenton and then fuel prices on top of it. But it still seemed like it was an okay turnout down there, all, everything considered.
Yeah, I won't complain about it either. You know, it was a long hike for a lot of people. Like you said, gas prices going up. I still think it had quite the showing. I don't know exactly how many entries it had. I just missed the first round pretty much every day with so much going on, and had to go out of town for work and had that going on. Then I got sick, so I was like, all right, the only thing I'm watching is the back of my eyelids at this point, so I'm asleep. But
Right.
I never got to hear. So if anybody knows how many actually showed up at the SFG opener, feel free to shout it out in the chat, man. As always, guys, this is Open Discussion Tuesday. We'll be interacting with the chat the whole time, and getting your feel for what's going on in the wonderful world of bracket racing. You know how that goes.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we didn't want to get into last week with whenever we had Brett Kepner on because we wanted to talk to him as much as possible, which by the way, he has agreed to come back at some point, guys. So once we get a little breathing room on some of this stuff, then we'll definitely have Brett back on, and we'll go into some actual history lessons on some stuff. Hopefully, without technical difficulties in the future. But
Right, right.
but I want to know, how did the truck do the first time you took it out for the year?
Well, I'm not going to complain on old Mo. He repeated the number pretty good, if you ask me. Uh, Besides the driver having a flinch in the second round, kind of dusting off the cobwebs for lack of better terms there. But had a few problems early on. Everybody knows if you've been watching Going Bracket Racing, if you're subscribed to the channel early on, end of the year last year, I started noticing a little bit of a fuel issue. Um, Truck was starving for fuel I'd say about 400, 450 feet. It tell me about it real in a violent way. So, um, first pass of the day, do the burnout, killed the truck. Truck just died. And so I'll go back to this too. I went through my warm up routine and I put a new regulator on the truck. So I was making sure all the fuel pressures was right and things like that. Noticed that I had zero fuel pressure at one point, and so I turned the truck off. I'm pretty sure no fuel pressure is not going to kill anything, but I'm going to turn the truck off just to make sure. When I turned it back on, the fuel pressure was back. I didn't think anything of it because it came back. Well, went to make that first run through the burnout, and she died on me. And so I turned them back on and staged up. I was 10 on the tree, which I guess that's good for me. First time out the box, I was 10 on the tree,
I'd
and
say so.
got out to about 400, 450 feet, and nosed over on me. So I said, well, crap. The work we done just didn't fix the problem, right? And so definitely ended up getting back to the trailer, and of course I have to call my dad. I know a lot of you guys may not have a old man to rely on, but I got one to rely on, and he knows quite a bit about drag racing. Been doing it 40 years. I called him. I said, we got the same problem. He says, well, we're gonna have to change that fuel pump. I said, well, all right, let's do it. Mind you, I knew the fuel pump needed to be rebuilt. Long story short, Eric Sandlin had to help me rebuild it because I am not the wisest when it comes to working on these things. Now I could probably drive fairly decent, but working on them, I can't. So we rebuilt it. And one trick I'll give to everybody, Eric Sandlin kind of taught this to me: a pair or a bag of diapers, Huggies, um, baby wet, baby dry, I don't care. have a few of those in your trailer. You never know what they might be able to help you with. Like I said, that fuel pump needed to be rebuilt. It was leaking out of one of the weep holes. Anyway, we took it off, put the new fuel pump on it, and put a diaper and a rag in there to make the run. Came back, went 597, no issues at all. So I think we found the issue on Omo. Long story short. Anyway, that's
Good
how
man.
that went. Went into the first round, won that, and then and then flinched the next round. So that's how that goes.
Hey man, the I'll tell you what though, it's good to find those issues early in the season rather than in the middle or late in the season, and then you end up fighting your way along. It always seems like because throughout the season certain things always happen, and then it just is harder later on in the season. Because number one, it's always 110 degrees outside in about
Yeah.
August.
Hmm.
Number two, you're just trying to make your way through the rest of the year. And number three, that's when all the big races are a lot of times towards the end of the year. So there are always a bunch of them stacked up in the beginning and at the end. So I'm always one for just get it out of the way, get it over with, and let's keep going.
Yeah, and I mean, I just froze completely. Here we go again. Completely froze. Don't know what to tell you. Casey, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I don't know what's going on, man. Hang in there, everybody, if you can still hear us. I'll be right back here in a moment. BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts are able to provide you with whatever you desire to enhance your drag racing operation. Items like safety belt magnets, nitrous bottle holders, and even quick release delay box mounts are able to be obtained from BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts. Have a look at top selling items such as helmet hooks and steering wheel hooks, which are proven to make it easier to maneuver throughout your race car. You can contact BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts at telephone number 765 729 1177. Well, there's another episode of Going Bracket Racing technical difficulties. I don't know what that was. It was just a nice little snag there, but what a good time to cut to commercial and see if I can get it all back. What do you think, Casey? That
That's right, man. That's what's good about having commercials is you can always just cut them in real quick. So
I heard that. BRG, you the man. Looking forward to seeing that fast release fire extinguisher mount that you made for us. It's coming in here pretty soon. So definitely looking forward to seeing that, and I'll get some video and some things like that out to a few of you guys who want to see that thing. So, but yeah, no, where are we at, Casey? Before Mr. Computer wanted to act up on me.
and I think what we need to just get into is this whole deal. You know, if you looked at the Going Bracket Racing Facebook page, you'll see that we posted a question. I don't know, it might have been, maybe it was Friday, somewhere around there. But you know, you and I have been talking personally just about, you know, what was it going to be like at SFG Bradenton, because that's about as far as you can go away to race for everybody. I mean, I live in North Carolina and it's still 12 hours south of me or so, 11 hours, something like that. So point is, it's a long way for everyone. But uh, I know I talked to S&W the other day. I talked to a guy on the phone over there. I can't remember his name, but anyway, he told me that he had several friends going down because S&W is up in Pennsylvania. They're going down the coast down there. And he said they saw sometimes 650 something on the side of the interstate on the way there. And I can tell you right now, that would about make you want to throw up if you're driving a motorhome or something like that, you know, that gets about 5 miles a gallon.
Yeah, that's no question, Casey. And it was good to see the race at least go off. Everybody knows SFG is going to pay his purse, so we don't even need to discuss that. Okay, you go into that race, he's gonna take care of you for doing so. So, but 650 on the way there is definitely something that probably didn't feel very good. Most of those racers have a motorhome. I can almost guarantee you that. So I'm pretty sure that didn't feel good at all to the pocketbook. Um, but glad the race continued to go. That I mean, you can't say enough about it. A lot of rain hit on Saturday, so they had to cancel Saturday and move it into a Sunday race for I think it was 50 grand to win on Sunday. But man, did that track have teeth or what?
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to comment here. I remember seeing somebody break past the 330 and someone got out. It looked like maybe the steering column maybe came off or something. You had to put it back together. Anyway, you got out of the car and tried to walk on that track. I'm pretty sure I saw shoes come off past the 330. So sticky is not the word for what was going on out there on that track. It was, it was
Are
sticky.
you talking about that red blower car? Is that what happened to that?
I can't really call which one it was, but somebody broke out past 330 for sure. And I think it was because the steering came out. Maybe that thing came out of there and he couldn't steer no more. Couldn't get the car to move off the track either. He ended up fixing it and driving it off the track under his own power, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken
okay.
myself. So this is my guess. I don't know if this is true or not. But what I would assume happened there is that steering shaft came out of there.
Definitely, man. So back to this whole fuel price fiasco, man. I was actually doing, this is actually based on one of the comments that Michael Beard put. There were like, I don't know, probably like 100 comments over there or something. And everybody's kind of the consensus is everybody's saying they'll stay local. Michael Beard actually did some math on there and he says he travels X amount per year and it's going to cost him like $1,800 more in fuel. Now, that seems like a lot of money, but over the course of the entire season and everything, it's not as much as you would think for a $2 per gallon increase, mind you. Like we're not talking a couple, 50 cents or something. Like that's a significant increase, and that's not a ton of money for having such a significant increase. So maybe it's not going to hit racing as much as everybody thinks. I mean, Brett Kepner said it himself. He's been around drag racing since the 60s. And he said, guess what? We've had gas crises in the past, and it's never hurt drag racing in the slightest. He said, what did he say, George? He said back in the day, it was equivalent in today's dollars during the gas crisis that he was actually filling up for $7.21 a gallon in today's dollars. And don't forget, whatever he was driving is probably 10 miles a gallon back.
Hey, it was something along those lines. I know that much. I ain't gonna quote it just off the top of my head and be wrong about it, but it definitely wasn't $3 a gallon. It wasn't $1.90 a gallon. He definitely said it didn't stop him then is what he was trying to say. If you missed that stream, head back and watch it. There's a bunch that you're gonna want to know by the time we have Brett Kepner back on the show for part two. And that's the best way to go back and rewatch that. Quite the historian, but definitely something that took me by storm. So I don't know, Casey. The $180, I think I heard you say, is what it cost you to fill your truck up the other day.
Yep, that's right, man. And the thing that it got me thinking about was, my first thought that came to my mind was stay local also. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, well, maybe some of these guys that have these huge rigs, because I mean, you can't pull safely, you can't pull your stacker trailer loaded all the way up, super top heavy with your dually. You might be able to move it around the yard. You might be able to, you see guys kind of run down the road with them. Not a good idea though. If you ever get a crosswind, you're going over, So the point is you pretty much, once you commit to having a stacker, you commit to always towing with a motorhome, which is probably going to get 5 miles to the gallon towing that stacker and going through the wind. Well, the thing that got me thinking was I did a little bit of math on my own. And your local races, like let's just say right in the middle is about $75 entry fee for your normal local race where you're running for $2,000 to win, right? So that ends up being 4 times a month. If you can race all month and it doesn't rain out or whatever, that's $300 worth of entry fees. That's not including buybacks, not including any of that stuff. We're just sticking with entry fees right now. Now, let's say you're lucky, like me and you, and you can go round trip to your racetrack, your local track and back, roughly 100 miles, just to make math easy. You do that 4 times at $5 a gallon, and figuring your truck gets 10 miles a gallon, pretty much everything's around there. We're all about the simple math right here. $200 more. So now we've spent $500 for the month racing. That's not including your fuel costs or any of that stuff or buybacks or nothing. Now, you race 4 times. So couldn't you also consider then going a 400-mile round trip? So you're driving the same amount of miles. That's still your $200. You take your $300, maybe put, I don't know, another 100 with it or something like that. I know off the top of my head, Loose Rockers entry fee, I think next week or week after next is $380, and you run a 10, 20, and a 10. So you're running for more money. You spent just a little more money, but you tow once and you still race almost the same amount of times. You race gamblers race, you do race the same amount of times.
So if I'm getting what you're saying here, a lot of people will make that kind of initial hit to the pocketbook to get to the race to take so many opportunities to get down the track. If I'm hearing you correctly, Casey, definitely a good point to throw the chat into this. What do you guys think with that comment? Casey, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to say that I think you could spend the same amount of money and effectively you race one time that month with your big hauler and everything, and you tow one time, you race one time, which is actually an entire weekend, so it's almost as much. Because realistically, in the summertime, you're probably going to have a rain out one of those weeks, or
Sure.
something's going to come up that there's a big race or something in the area, and everybody's going to go there. So all the tracks are closed. Like in North Carolina, whenever Galat has the fling, all the local tracks are going to be closed because everyone's going to be at the fling. So we're talking strictly in the local racer aspect right now, as in the local smaller tracks are closed, big events in town, you're not going. So my point is, there is a way. Like, everybody thinks, oh, these big racers are going to die. Not necessarily.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Definitely chime in into the chat, guys. I see exactly what you're saying. As Anthony Evans chimes in and says, fuel dropped 12 cents here today. I hadn't been out of the house because I work at home, but I hope that's the case here too because I'll mess around and fuel up today. But I definitely get what you're saying, Casey. It probably does even out, but the question is, does that one race per month tickle the fancy of the modern day bracket racer? Um,
I don't know, man.
a
It's
lot of us just love to race, so
right.
I'm gonna stick with what Brett Kepner said. Will it stop bracket racing? No, it won't. No, it's not gonna stop it.
And at the end of the day, man, my big thing is I like to race every single weekend, and I'm subject to having an off week, and I don't want that off week to be the only week I can race because I need to redeem myself the following week a lot of times. Because I mean, could you imagine if you do try to if you have brand new equipment, this wouldn't be an issue, but if you're like a normal guy like the rest of us and you kind of are, you don't have brand new stuff all the time, if you go out and you don't know if your stuff's going to work, what happens if you're like me and break the converter? And, you know, I don't have a spare converter. You know what I mean? So I can't just throw a new converter because the thing is, when you break the converter, it pumps it all through the transmission. So you don't just have to replace the converter, you have to replace the transmission. And more than likely, you have to replace the transmission cooler, which is what I had to do.
Definitely
So,
something to be thinking about. Going that far, I think you better travel with everything in the trailer,
right,
especially with fuel prices being the way that they are. And that way, if you do break something, hey, you might have to spend a couple of rounds fixing it. We're at the racetrack, so I promise there'll probably be 10, 15 guys standing right next to you to be like, "Hey, what you need? Let's get it going." You know, that's just what we do. Um, I'm not making that up. If you've never been to a bracket race, honestly, that's what we do. If your car's broke, several people will let you know. Anything on their trailer is yours. But I'm going to hit on Troy Abercrombie here. He says a comment on the YouTube sides. It's such a regional conversation. We don't have many options out west, but to go every weekend. So Casey, let's jump into that, man. What are your thoughts on what Troy says there?
I think he's kind of getting at the. I don't know if he's getting at the fact that he doesn't have the opportunity to go every weekend, or maybe he doesn't have the opportunity to. Because I know Troy's in Oregon, so it's not like there's a bunch of big money racing in Oregon, I think is what he's getting at.
Yep.
So I think it's more or less he can go whenever the track decides it's open because there might only be one track by him.
Yeah, that's what I think that's what I think's going on there. He's basically saying he doesn't get the option to just say I'm going big money bracket racing this one time this month. He's pretty much going to be a weekend warrior, which is what I anticipate myself to be. To be honest, I'm a weekend warrior. This weekend I'll head over to Ardmore just for one day. I know they got two races going on, but spring break for the kids, and I got to do something. Since they're off for a week. But she chimes in and says we don't have multi-day big money races, and so
Right.
that's kind of what I was expecting. He was talking about the ability to be able to go and run these big races. It's a regional conversation for him. I wonder what
Right.
else we could say. Maybe what other states might be in that particular situation. Chime
Well,
in, guys. Maybe what Troy's saying, maybe it fits you guys. But
I know that's why a lot of guys on the West Coast follow the NHRA tour a lot, and that's why it seems seemingly in the Southeast, not many people really want to do that because there's a plethora of drag strips that you can go to at any given time. I mean, there's usually 3 or 4 open on the weekend within 2 hours of my house. But then over there, I know the reason Justin Lamb, I've heard him say before, I think he's from Vegas area, but I know Justin Lamb has said before that the reason he chases NHRA is because simply that's what there is. Like that's what there is out there.
right, right. So, hey, you one way or the other, what you're saying is we're going to find a way to race. One way or the other, Troy's saying he's going to race is what he's saying. I do like Sean Pinkerton's comment here though. He says he would like to see local tracks go to a Saturday, Sunday for points every other week. This gets them 4 points races per month. The off weeks can be test and tune, gamblers races, special events, etc. More races for the track and lets the points racers get more races for one toe. Seems like a lot. Well, I speak for Ardmore. I speak strictly for Ardmore. Seems like Ardmore got the memo. Okay, because points race 1 and 2 are Saturday, Sunday events, and that I know it's only an hour away from me, right? I'm going to go to just one of those events, but there will be people there that pull into the gates on maybe Friday. I didn't see if there was a gamblers race. He gave me the flyer. I'll look that up while we're sitting here, but it's exactly to Will's point. Excuse me, Sean's point. It's going to be one toe for 2 points race. What do you think about that, Casey? You guys chime in the chat too. That I like that idea.
That's what a lot of places do out here. We actually might as well run through the chat over here. We got Alan Boykin over here. George Hoff says he needs to talk, and then he's talking to us in here. So he might hate on us about some electric vehicles here in a minute. I don't know yet,
Uh-oh.
but we'll see. We got Rocky McLean in here. We got Bill Badson in here. Bracket Racer 9622, Eddie White. What else we got? Bracket Racer 1. We got a lot of people in here today, man. David State.
Bowker's
Got it.
here.
Big Daddy
Bowker's
Al,
here.
Sam, old racer.
Hey,
Yep.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I think that um, a lot of people might have already thought about what Sean's saying. I see Jim Balkert saying Gateway's points races are Saturday and Sundays too, and we
Yeah,
know that that's different. I mean, I've never heard of that at Worldwide Technology. Of course, I'm not in that area like I used to be, but I never heard that before. So something about.
that's a lot of places do that out here, and I really like it because first of all, it's a once a month thing to go there, so you can always, if you have a busy life or you have, you got kids that do stuff on the weekends, maybe play basketball or whatever, then you can run all around and do that stuff, and then you have the one weekend where you can go racing, and then you can focus on your family or whatever the rest of the time, work, whatever. Champ actually has a question in here. He says, do you think racetracks upping their purses to try to draw more people? Do you think you'll see racetracks upping their purses this year to try to draw more people? Maybe you'll luck up and get some extra gas money. Yeah, that's right. I don't know if that'll happen or not, man, because in our area and in the Carolina area and everything, it's really hard to do that because everybody's already paying $5,000 to win. I know Galat, until that race got canceled, they had a 21 grander and I believe a 20 grander as well already this year, which they're kind of known for their big money racing there. We also have Bird in here saying a guy he knows says it cost $800 to fill up his rig to go race his 6 second on the quarter bike. That's getting after it.
That's getting after it, and that's expensive at the same time. But a lot of people are chiming in here. This is an excellent topic. Almost wish we'd hit this topic a little earlier in the year. You know what I mean? I guess it is still earlier for a lot of people. A lot of people haven't even been able to drive yet.
Yeah, well, JR, he said that Jared Bonfield's actually sending me pictures of he got a flat hood for the Corvette this year, and it looks sweet. Looks like a stock style L88 hood, I think it is. But anyway, he was telling me that that Gateway actually, I think, is open this weekend for the first time for test and tune as long as the weather's good. So
nice.
You're right.
And in that area, I think Tentuck is this week too. So, I mean, if it's not raining, there's going to be a lot of people. There's always a lot of people at Ten Tuck. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but a lot of good comments in here, man. That will be me this weekend at Ardmore. Kevin Grider's going to Ardmore. I'll see you there, buddy, on Sunday. Um, and Eric White saying round money.
Yep.
Definitely, even if you don't increase the purse by much, if you throw that round money in there or pay back a little bit further, you're going to get more racers as is.
You
That's
know,
just the nature of the beast.
and speaking of getting more racers, I have a really good topic, but I don't want to get into it right away. Like, I want to get into it next, but run the TSR commercial and then we'll get into this next topic because I think it's going to be a big one.
That sounds good. Hang in there, guys. We'll be right back to you.
TSR Racing Products has everything you need to make your Power Glide Turbo 350, Turbo 400, and 727 transmissions the best they can be on the street or at the track. With exceptional products, customer service, and over 30 years of experience, TSR Racing Products is always available to help their customers with any of their transmission needs. In-house machining ensures you only receive the best products from TSR Racing. Visit TSR Racing Products at tsr-racing.com or give them a call at 800-394-5889.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging in there with us, friends over at TSR. I mean, Casey loves you. I know that much.
I do, man. I've used them a lot. And I can tell you right now that Power Glide transmission rebuild book is totally worth having, man. So just giving yourself a little bit of visual reference, and it explains. I mean, it's thick, man. It's like a Haynes manual if you've ever seen those at the auto parts store, just for random vehicles. But this is specifically for Power Glide transmissions. It tells you every single part, how to take it apart, how to service it, how to put it back together. And then it also goes into telling you specifics on this is what your run out and stuff like that should be on your input shaft for a Power Glide race transmission. It explains how a converter works, which is one of the most confusing things ever, but there's a lot of reading to be done, to say the least.
Hey, man, you said Haynes manual, and my mind went completely to underwear. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so you need a
Microsport
manual to put your drawers on? Okay, my bad. my bad. Where are we going with the next topic? Thank you guys for chiming in. I see Barn out there. What's going on? We see you, Barn. Bird Life Sundays are best for this guy. Most tracks around here don't want to race on Sundays. That's understandable, man. You got to go to church. I understand it.
You
This
can also
week,
have church at the track, though.
that's true, and it happens quite a bit. It does. But I remember last year when I pulled Mo back to Texas. The next week, I couldn't find a race, but ended up finding one last minute because Kenny Prost. He's like, hey, man, we're running Ardmore. I was like, I'll be there Sunday. I believe they lost at least 30% of the racers that were there Saturday to go to church on Sunday. So definitely something that is relevant. So this week I'll miss church, unfortunately, but I'll be back. Yep.
Well, that's what leads me into this next topic. And the reason that I thought about this is because literally this just happened, I want to say last night. We have a couple local tracks that we're not going to say any names or whatever, but everybody knows who I'm talking about if you're from around here. But there were two tracks that scheduled two major races on top of each other. And they're not super tracks, and these aren't super events. They're like $5,000 to win, which is a big local race, for anybody. The point is last weekend got rained out. And then this weekend, it's going to be great weather. Well, anyway, that certain track rescheduled that event for this weekend. Problem is, those two tracks are only roughly 30 minutes apart. So what you're going to end up doing is if you have both tracks running, you're going to have 40 people here and 40 people here when you could have 80 all at one or the other, So that kind of brought me into this whole thing of why don't these local tracks that are so close together, and I know that's kind of an anomaly because that's a this area type thing. Usually tracks aren't that close together anywhere else in the country. It's just everything started out here, So anyway, local tracks, if they work together more, in my opinion, they could potentially, like I just said, rather than running on the same Saturday night, you could have someone run Saturday, someone run Sunday. We've already talked about the issues with that, which I don't think is the best route. What I think is the best route is you run every other weekend. So like say this track A runs the first and the third week of the month, and then track B runs second and fourth week of the month. Now, first thing you're going to say is, well, now you're only making half the money. Well, not really, because all those racers, in theory, if they're supporting both tracks equally, you'll have twice as many cars at each track, but you'll actually make more money because now you have 2 less weeks to pay your crew guys if you decide to close. You have that much less glue, or you stand to make a whole lot more money because now your off weeks can be either special events or, better yet, for the tracks, testing to, where you don't have to do anything. You have a minimal amount of people, minimal amount of track prep, no complaints. Whoever comes to the lanes, you send them down the track.
Yeah, I like it, and I think it's going to be more relevant, more and more relevant as we continue to move forward. I know you're mentioning that that's definitely a problem in Carolina. I think it's the problem in Texas to some extent as well, where you have one race scheduled at this track, where there's another race at this track that kind of interferes with it. Um, I would like to see some type of collaboration between the two or three or four. It just depends how many tracks are actually within that radius, and then what's the distance that you actually throw into the mix. You know, is an hour and a half? Is 2 hours? Is that too far away? I think the answer is no. But I mean, I think there should be a little bit more collaboration. It's just to what extent. I think it's a good problem to have. I think, but it would be much more easy, I'd say easier for us racers to pick where to go if one track runs this week and the other runs the next.
Right. Well, and the thing is it opens both tracks up to doing some kind of collaborative points program, or some kind of, what would be really cool is if you had top 10 in points at this track and top 10 in points at this track run for a shootout at the end of the year for, like, I don't know, some team type event where, I don't know, if you could put like $500 or $1,000 up. I mean, it would also be a scenario where you could bring back the bounty. Like, you could have a bounty, and however many runs that guy's won before someone beats him, you put $10 in every time or something, because you always have those guys that go on runs and win, like, 16 rounds in a row or something.
I'm gonna steal this one from Eric White too, and I'm probably 80% in agreement with what he's saying here. It's a relevant comment. It says those two tracks typically do alternate, right? Rescheduled dates got them crossed up this time. So generally there is some type of communication going on between the two, is what he's saying. But he says, let me stir the pot. And he said something different than that, but I'm just going to read the PG version with this. It says, isn't competition good for business and the customer? Or should I say consumer? I like it. I like the comment. I do. I think that competition is always going to drive track A to want to do better than track B, which is going to drive us racers to one track or the other, right? I guess my only drawback to the comment is the time that we're in bracket racing. Those tracks being that close together, those local tracks wanting to pay the 3 and the 5, the $5 granders. I'm not talking about 60 to enter, 1,000 to win if you have 20 cars or 30 cars. I'm talking $5 grander or $3 grander or a little bit bigger of a purse. Collaboration in those aspects it's going to make those races go off a whole lot smoother. Number one. Number two, everybody gets to run for that big money, which is going to increase the competition on the track, which is where I would like to see the competition go down in the first place. I'd rather not see track owner A and track owner B get to throwing the dukes up on the internet, and you see me at the track, well, I don't want to talk to you, and now there's no communication between it all. So there's a yes and a no to that question, but that's a heck of a question. I like it.
Well, the thing is, though, it's like, I also would say yes and no, because here's the problem. If these are two small tracks competing against one another, ultimately, if one wins, that puts the other one out of business, which would inevitably happen. If you get this type of competition, it's going to happen. So one's going to get shut down. Then racers don't win anymore, because now you only have one choice. So now that track can do whatever it wants. It can up entry fees, it can decrease purse, it can do whatever it wants, and you have no choice because now you have one less track. The answer at this point in the world is to keep as many tracks around as possible, in my opinion.
100% agree with it too, because again, this is the year of the local track. It's not time to get in um, a pissing match over who's going to gain what entry.
Well,
And I'm telling you, it's more relevant than what we actually know. It's more relevant. As I look at George Hoff's comment, competition is horrible. That's why the promoters are banning EVs. Yeah, I'm not going to go down the line of EVs right now. Everybody knows how I feel about them. Keep them on the sideline. So anyway,
well,
you know,
the other side of that is too is that if you think about it, yes, most old tracks look old. They feel old whenever you're there. They don't have as nice of facilities as a brand new track. But what the old track does have a lot of times, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but there's a very good chance that the old track, if it's in the middle of a cornfield somewhere, like a lot of old tracks are, they usually don't get messed with because they've been in the community since the 60s a lot of times. These two tracks that I have in mind right now, they've been around, I think, at least that long. So people are used to them. So the number one problem that racetracks face is people building subdivisions all around. Well, if already everything is farmland and nobody has a subdivision over there, you're not going to get messed with over there. But maybe this brand new track that people aren't used to, and they're like, oh, here's a bunch of flat land, I'm going to put a racetrack there. And somebody else says, oh, there's a bunch of flat land, I'm going to put a subdivision there. Matter of time.
Matter of time. It's true. And Kevin Gratter chimes in and says, have you ever raced at two tracks on the same day? I've never done it. I ain't scared to do it, but I ain't never done it. At the same time, this year might not be the year that happens. That sounds like $180 for a tank of diesel to make it happen. So that's about how I think about that one. It says out west, this is Dragster Jeff Kreider. He says out west we have 5 hours drive between drag trips. So he's piggybacking off of kind of what I think Troy's saying. There's just such a big difference in distance, and that's why I said, what is the distance to where two tracks need to collaborate their dates? What is the distance? Is it an hour? Is it 2 hours? Is it 5 hours? Because that says a lot. I'm thinking that hour and a half, 2 hour mark is probably that distance.
More than likely.
Simply because that's what people are going to travel in the first place.
I think it depends also on how many tracks there are, because like out here, for example, if you said an hour and a half distance, that's a lot of tracks. That's impossible, But, in the majority of places, like, for example, in Southern Illinois, where we used to live, definitely you could do that. Absolutely. Because everybody was going to go, like, whenever Mid-America was open, they used to always race Sundays. Gateway would race Saturday, and everybody just go to Mid-America. I-57 was quite a ways away from all that stuff. They would race every single weekend. But I really think the Mid-America Gateway thing was always a good comparison for that, because every single person almost that was at Gateway on Saturday was at Mid-America on Sunday, and they both packed the house every time.
Yeah, but again, you're speaking two different days worth of racing. Now, if that was the case, and Saturdays, maybe even we go to Friday. I know a lot of people have to work, which makes the Fridays harder. But if that's the case, and we can get a track open on Sunday, that's not going to lose car count based on the church day. You know what I mean? So you definitely got to have a service or something going on at the track. A lot of people won't go to church, and that's a good thing. So definitely, I see your point. If that could work to where there's collaboration, you take Saturday, I'll take Sunday. Like Kevin Gardner said, Tri-State on Saturday morning and Edgewater that night, they were 20 minutes apart. Well, that's an interesting distance, number one, 20 minutes apart for two drag strips. But number two, I can see myself going to both racetracks on something like that. Maybe the track that doesn't have the curfew says we start at such and such time. We're only going to give one time run, and maybe a run for the money after that. But I don't know. There's a lot of things we could do to collaborate. So,
and that reminds me that another point is a lot of those old tracks don't have curfews.
right.
The old tracks are usually grandfathered in, unlike a lot of new tracks where they do have a curfew, and that curfew being at midnight on a Saturday, if you have a big car count and you have just one oil down, you're hitting that curfew.
I tell you what, I'm gonna talk to George Hoff a little bit. He's in our chat, man. Bringing up these EV cars. I think you do make a good point, George, when you say competition is horrible. That's why they're banning EVs, and everyone says we need new blood. Nope, ban them. Um, you could very well be onto something, George. At the rate that we're moving in our country, we might all have an EV car to a drag race before we know it. Because next thing you know, methanol is not able to be bought, or a barrel of regular racing
Hey
gasoline.
man,
So,
methanol. I just told my boss the other day, methanol is alternative fuel. I went green a long time ago.
true, but I see what you're saying, George Hoff, man. I'm not a fan of EV cars. I just feel like there's too many computers on them bad boys. So it's gonna take a while for me to change my stance there. He's saying that if I knew how hard they were to drive, that being EV cars, definitely wouldn't say that. I don't know, George, because I tell you what, once it's set up, and I mean, once it's set up, driving hard is hit the light and know what to do at the stripe, in my opinion. So it's not really that hard to cut a light, in my opinion. Again, on the bottom or on the top, not that hard. It's not that hard to figure out. All right, I'm going straight through the finish line, or I'm ahead, I'm behind. I'm gonna drop this guy. So I don't know how much harder it could be, George, but you sound like you're speaking from experience. How hard is it? Maybe now is the time to get George Hoff's Skype information and bring him on the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel.
Yeah. I actually really like to talk to somebody on this show about EVs because there is so much animosity towards them, from me as well. And obviously, Michael Beard and Anthony Walton, they're not allowing them in loose rocker races this year. So it would be nice to have someone that actually has real live experience with it explain to us why it isn't what everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, why are we frowning on it in the first place? George goes on to say, and a new dragster doesn't have computers. Yeah, I think they have computers. They're called MSD. They're called the grid. They're called the race pack. And there's things you can do with those cars to make them as consistent as possible. But there's so much that can be done with a Tesla that'll never get caught. That's my problem. There's
My
not enough.
problem.
There's not enough technology, and we are not Tesla. Okay, I don't. I don't know enough about him to be able to say this guy's cheating or this guy's not cheating. And that ain't the only thing for me. I know that there's many ways to make your own atmosphere. I think Paige Hamlin, speaking of, don't miss that 6-shooter race, guys. She's doing quite a few raffles to get you guys in there for pretty cheap in the first place. $20. I mean, that thing filled up pretty quick. So definitely stay on your P's and Q's if you're trying to enter that. But 6-shooter has a sponsor who I think they do something to create their own atmosphere. Now, I don't want to just call it and be wrong about it. Do you remember the name of it?
What it does. It's I can't remember the name of it, but what
like
it does
CO2?
is it injects compressed air. Basically, what it's doing is it's making it where you effectively are supercharging your engine, but it's with compressed air out of scuba tanks. Actually, I looked it up the other day and was just trying to figure out exactly what it was. But basically, what it's doing is it's kind of, I guess the most similar thing would be nitrous, only it's acting as boost rather than making the anyway, it's going to take forever to explain all that stuff. But the point is what it's doing is it's creating boost without putting a drag on the motor effectively. So you're getting your same, 20 pounds of boost, but the motor didn't have to make it.
Right. I definitely just floated over the Hamlin race flyer, and just to give everybody an understanding of what's going on at that race. Definitely is going to be a one to come to. I've already ordered my camper. I know a lot of people were asking, how much did you have to pay for your camper? How did it go? What's it look like? Everybody knows I have to tow my own race car to the racetrack, so I'm not gonna leave the track and go get a camper. They're gonna deliver it to me and set it up, tear it down. I think it was like $600 for the whole weekend, just so you know. So it's possible, instead of paying a hotel, to stay at the racetrack the whole weekend. Just so you know, guys.
Hey, man, with like these guys are saying, I think Bird said $800 to fill up this guy's toter. Well, the thing is, if you do what you just did and they deliver it there, Now, you didn't have to spend all of that money in the toter, not to mention paying for it to begin with, but you didn't have to spend all that money in that toter. You still got decent mileage in your trucks. You got an open trailer and a decent truck. You get decent mileage still.
That's correct.
So
that's correct.
now you just saved, all that money, that extra 10 miles of the gallon that you're getting or so going to the track that this toter isn't going to get. You could pay for stuff like that. So that might be the route that a lot of people need to take this year that they haven't thought about.
Yeah, definitely. I don't, man. This is some pretty good comments going on the YouTube side about how we're not rocket scientists. We're bracket racers. Yeah, but in the midst of us bracket racers is at least one rocket science, one rocket scientist.
Well,
we're not all that far off of rocket science.
My thing with the EVs, really the only issue I have as of right now, because to George Hoff's point, not yours, but to George Hoff's point, yes, all the new dragsters and all the new door cars and whatever, they all have a bunch of computers too. They can do a ton of stuff too. The only issue that I have with electric cars at this point, because what he said is 100% true there, the issue that I have is the fact that atmospheric changes will never, ever affect a electric vehicle as it will every single internal combustion engine that's out there. And that's the issue that where everything erupts, because for example, you go to Bristol where you notoriously have all kinds of weather changes and all of a sudden everybody this round will be running 5 numbers above or 5 numbers below. Not that EV. That EV is going to run what it's running. And maybe it's not as consistent, because Michael Beard said it on one of our past shows. If you want to see Michael Beard, he's back in the archives on the Going Bracket Racing live streams. But he even mentioned it. He said they're actually not as consistent as you would think yet, of course.
Yet.
But the point is that whatever that variance is, no matter where you go, that's the variance it's going to have. So, but you can't predict that variance at a track like Bristol with an internal combustion engine.
So I kind of know what George is going to say here. He's going to say that we've already figured that out. When we went to blowers, when we went to Pro Chargers, when we went to all these other things, I still think there's a little bit of atmospheric element to the blower and the Pro Charged cars, but it definitely ain't as much as what us carbureted boys go through. Injected
Right.
boys, it's not. It's
just physics.
It's just physics, right? So I don't know. I get him though. I get the comment of we always say we need new blood in drag racing. You're right. I think the EV cars that it may be where it's at. It might be.
Give them their own class. No big deal.
Give them their own class until we figure out their capabilities is where I'm at. Bringing a new gun into an old fight is gonna get somebody in trouble, basically. Bring a 50 caliber to a fight where somebody just has a 45. That's how I think about EV versus internal combustion. And I could be 100% wrong. And I don't know what gave EV cars that stigma, but I've had it the whole time. So it isn't something that I heard or read. It's just something that came to my mind because I'm a computer guy. So I understand computers very well. I understand them. So
I agree with Bracket Racer 1 over here, by the way. He says, I've been wrong before. Yep, me too.
Yep.
Could be wrong right now, for all I know.
Totally.
It's very high likelihood.
Could totally be wrong right now, though. So in the chat, what's everybody got going on this weekend? I know we're looking up. Hopefully the weather's not doing what it's doing in Texas. I swear on Friday when I landed on the plane, it was 26 degrees and sleeting and all this other bull crap. I swear on yesterday, there was a tornado touchdown about 20 minutes away from my house. Texas, you need to make your mind up, all right? I'm tired of telling you. But dang it, I can't keep dealing with it's 75 degrees outside, right? 75 right now. I can't keep dealing with summer, winter, and spring all at the same time. That part's probably why I caught the flu in the first place. So,
yeah. I actually just saw a comment in here, Eric White saying, a rival track shootout, talking about what we were saying earlier. A rival track shootout sounds fun. That would definitely be fun, man. Like that's kind of what I was getting at in the get-go with with my idea of if they work together and then the top 10 in points of all the classes get together at the end of the year, Thanksgiving time or something, because you can race out here at that time. Maybe not Thanksgiving, because that's whenever Michael Beard does that all door car race and everybody will be there. But sometime towards the end of the year, whenever, not bracket finals time is going on. But what do you think about that? That'd be cool. King of North Carolina type deal, something like that.
I think it's pretty sweet. I think that it would be even better, like you're saying, to do. I'd like to see the first combined points series where one race is here, the next race is there. Somehow the tracks figure out a way to split the profits to where both tracks actually make a good amount of money from it. All you got to do is run for the money, number two, to boost that. All right. But not everybody, both tracks don't have to glue their tracks each weekend. You kind of ration your reserves together. I would love to see a combined track points series. And I think the competition level, number one, competition level is going to be extremely high. Two, the car turnout is going to be extremely high. So your Super Pro Greens or whatever you guys call it in North Carolina, but that second chance race, you're going to make some good money at those type of things. So I'd like to see it. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I definitely would like to see that.
What I always thought was cool ever since I moved out here is they have a class that's Carolina Class Racers, CCRA. And they kind of run around, obviously, Carolina Class Racers, they run around Carolina. But they have I want to say they have 18 races a year. And they'll run at Coastal, then they'll run at Kinston, then they'll run, I think, at Roxborough. And then I think they run their season finale at Galat. But they run all around all these tracks. So you're kind of touring around, but you're not really driving that far. But you're always somewhere at a different track, which for those guys, I don't think they can run delay boxes or anything. So you're seeing a different tree or at a different track. So it's just kind of cool that you can be like, okay, cool. Now I'm at Rockingham. This is my track, like just something different. And you feel like you're on a little miniature you are on a series tour. You know what I mean? And I just thought that was cool because that spreads the wealth around all the tracks too, because that is actually something that would attract spectators.
Dale, I'm not going to mess your name up. I think it's Guthier. But Dale chimes in and says Super Tour in Canada is just that. Yep. I'd love to see it. I mean, think about it. How many tracks do you have in Carolina? Do you even know? Like
a lot, man. Like I know that, let me open this thing. I got an Excel document over here that before I moved out here, this was my last thing I did when I still lived in Colorado. So within 95 miles of my house, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One of them isn't open right now, I don't think, though, or maybe it is. I have to ask Lorenzo Martin if he's in here. He'll tell me if Harold's is still open. I'm pretty sure they are. But anyway, so yeah, there's 8 of them right there within 100 miles. If you want to go within 200 miles, there's 19.
So
now that's including Virginia and South Carolina within that 200 miles.
I got you.
Sideways down here.
I got you. But think of it though. You put 4 tracks together and 5, 6 tracks together. You guys run in your area to the shortest distance possible, and then everybody meets up. The top 16 of each, or even more, even top 32 of each group of tracks meet in the center location to run it all off for all the marbles. That would be fun. Okay, it's just something new, but that would be fun. I'd love to be in that scenario. Put it that way.
Yeah, man, that would be something too that you could do as there would be enough cars if you took the top 10 in points from all those places about, I don't know, October. It seems like there's a dead spot a lot of times in October. And you said everyone meet here, dude, you'd have you'd have almost 200 cars. You'd have 150 for sure to do the King of North Carolina deal or the King of the South deal or whatever you want to call it, because obviously we're including Virginia and South Carolina and North Carolina, but something could be done that would be very cool, like a little miniature type bracket finals deal, because
right.
That's the year you get to have your team. Everybody's on the same team now.
That's right. That's the way I see it too. I know they used to do it, Division 4 kind of versus all the divisions or should I say Division 3 goes to meet up in Indy and run it all off. So I'd like to see us get back to that, but put it on a grander scale is what I'd like to see. So isn't that called the bracket finals? Pretty much, Sean Pinkerton. Pretty much, man. I'd like to see it. I like to see it where the points are held in between tracks collaborating, but definitely a bracket finals, basically. Yep. So
Right. But this would all be in an area that no one is probably further than 300 miles away from the track if they're on the whole other side. You know what I mean? So it would just, I just think it would be a really cool idea. And I think you could pay a decent amount of money for it and the people will come just because they're coming with all their buddies. You know, the people you race with every weekend, you're coming as your team, have your own pit spots and everything. It's exactly like bracket finals, only guess what? They're actually going to maybe have a payout. That's what I'm thinking. Whereas bracket finals
it's like a couple grand
beans, and then your thing that you got to do was, you know, they're like, oh, you won. That's cool. And now you got to drive all the way to Pomona, California and run it off.
Right.
So I'd probably be going to Pomona if I want it, though.
Hey, well, at least attempt it, you know. But coming up on that good old hour mark, and I'd have to say this was a pretty good stream. I think for us to kind of get out there, mill it over, talk about. Let's hope and pray these gas prices begin to come down, and you know we can. I guess I can't call it get back to normal because this could be normal for a while. So, what you got in closing, Casey?
And just ready to hopefully be able to go racing this weekend. Got everything all back together in the car, and I'm hoping that the weather holds out to where I can go to Test and Tune on Thursday. You just get an idea of what number I even need in the box. I'm fairly certain everything's going to be fine, but definitely be going somewhere this Saturday regardless. So might just be testing for $5,000 to win. Who knows?
Sounds about right, man. Sounds about right. To everybody who joined in, chimed in, thank you. We can't thank you enough for being the biggest part of the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel. We couldn't do it without you guys, and we certainly would probably quit already had it not been for you guys and giving us someone to speak with, somebody to kind of mill over the thought process of Going Bracket Racing in today's age. So George Hoff, make sure you come back. We ain't mad at you. we lay you to death. Bring the EV comments on back next Tuesday. Till then, guys.